Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and actor Ray Fisher is finally opening up about his experience on the set of Justice League and Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers. He's quoted as saying, "I don't believe some of these people are fit for leadership." Does this mean he's finally going to drop some evidence? You guys sent this over to me, and you clearly wanted my reaction. I'm going to go in greater detail tonight. We're going to go live tonight with Real Talk. I'm trying to get Jody and Lewis on so we can really go through this full article because it's a long one. But I wanted to pick out a few of the most important tidbits that came from it. If you want to hear the whole piece, though, make sure to join us tonight. In fact, I'll put a little reminder up here for the live stream. Go click on that, and then you can click on Remind Me. Join us tonight at 9. It's going to be a great stream. We're going to get into a lot of the details. But I want to get through this, some of the most important new things that came out of this. Overall, does Ray Fisher help his argument? In my mind, no. And before I even get to it, it's important to reiterate, everyone thinks I'm just hating on Ray Fisher. No. Ray Fisher's come at me and made it personal. I've made videos explaining that. But I believe in due process. I don't just stand with anybody, no matter their gender, their race. I don't care. I stand with the truth. And I need to hear both sides of a story. And over the course of the summer, Ray really has sort of changed his story. It feels like he's adjusted it as he's gone. And the example, the Forbes article about the color correction, that's no longer being talked about. He threw that out there, and then it sort of just died, and he didn't pick it back up. He's like, oh, crap. That wasn't real. He's made a lot of accusations based off of assumptions and hearsay. And it's really dangerous. And that's why it's dangerous to stand with someone and create a social media mob because they might not have all the information. It also very well could be a miscommunication. Both Ray and Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon could all be telling the truth for all we know. And they're somewhere in the middle where they just didn't get along on set. It's always what it sort of seemed like to me. So these serious allegations that Ray keeps lobbing, that's why I've taken this seriously. And they make a point of this. He's been very vague, cryptic tweets. I'm not so indebted to Hollywood that I haven't been able to put myself out there. Facts. Both of those are facts, cryptic tweets. And he has put himself out there. But now he's ready to talk. And he used social media in a series of interviews to lob serious allegations of behavior and a cover-up. And so, yeah, it's not about standing up for a studio. It's because he's naming out specific individuals that this mob wants to cancel and never have work again. Remove them from ever. And Ray actually says at the end, he corrects what his goal is, and we'll get there. But that's what this is important to me, making sure we go through this fairly, just like the investigation that Catherine Forrest, a former federal judge, tells in a statement, interviews with more than 80 witnesses. She found no credible support for claims of racial animus or racial insensitivity. As Warner Media spokesman notes, the company made extraordinary efforts to accommodate Mr. Fisher's concerns about the investigation and to ensure its fullness and fairness, has complete confidence in the investigation process and Forrest's conclusions. Now, it doesn't talk about the ABUSC or anything else. So clearly, they do specifically stand on the racist part of it. But I went through all this. He doesn't lob anything new. The most serious accusation comes from a source alleging that Joss Whedon tried to cancel Gal Gadot's career for being annoying and not just following suit. And basically, there's a quote. It's pretty awful if it's true. Look, the bottom line is Joss Whedon, if this is all accurate, which don't disbelieve, Joss Whedon is an a-hole. But does that mean he did some of the other stuff that Ray keeps accusing? No. A lot of people are a-holes in Hollywood, and they're just jerks. Say this person's an a-hole, I never want to work with this person again, and move on. That's the reality. But no, as Ray made it clear, he makes it clear in this piece, he was motivated by Black Lives Matter. And he says as much in here. He says it, in fact, I want to make sure I don't... Here it is. Here it is. He says he felt a new sense of urgency to speak out when the pandemic hit and Black Lives Matter protesters took the streets. So Jody and I have been saying that forever, and we've been, oh, how dare you make this... He said it. He admitted it. That's when he finally spoke up. At the height of that movement, when everyone was very emotional, and for valid reasons, he made this racial. I really think he's made this a racial battle, when reality is it's just a bunch of a-holes on a movie set. And I'm sorry, huge difference. Huge difference, Ray. And that's the problem. He's walked down the street calling people racist, and he needs to prove that then, and he can't. It's all hearsay, what he's heard, and we're going to get to in a second. But that's the biggest problem with this story. All right, so getting to the heat of what happened. Let's not bury the lead here. This little line in here is very telling. Jody Damas. By late 2020, Fisher went public with his dissatisfaction of what he viewed as Warner's inaction. For their part, Warner sources contend that Fisher was being manipulated by Snyder, who hoped to reclaim control of the DC universe. Jody Damas! I hope to get Jody on tonight for a little bit to comment on this. I'm sure he's going to do a video himself, but I mean, we've been calling this from day one. That's two things now that we've been calling out from day one that that this article is admitting. The reality is emotionally manipulated by the movement, emotionally manipulated by Snyder. Facts. These are facts. Now, Ray obviously says no way. To the assertion that a black man would not have his own agency is just as racist as the conversations Warner leadership was having about the Justice League reshoots. I've been underestimated at every turn during this process, and that is what has led us to this point. Had they taken me seriously as they should have from the beginning, they would have not made us as many foolish mistakes as they did in the process. So this is a very telling response. No one mentioned race until he did. You could have just been looking up to Ray, to Zach because of the tragedy, as a friend. There's a lot of reasons you'd be manipulated by Snyder. Emotionally manipulated due to the legit tragedy that happened and the way the studio treated him. It's absolutely a way you would be one. And Zach is someone who wrote your character better, who wants to do more with you. This idea that it's about how dare a black man would not have his own agency. No, you're indebted to Zack Snyder, so therefore you are biased. To say you aren't, it would be unfair to Zack Snyder and what you experienced with him. Of course you're biased to Zach, and of course Zach could be. You know what? Let's really show him. They've said as much. Jody confirmed this with Cactus. They want blood. They want revenge. And here was an opportunity for you, who has said nothing for years. You've read the talking points. He admits he apologized to Whedon in this whole article. You had no issue until the summer of Black Lives Matter, and now you're making it about race. Which, let's be again, remember, I'm not trying to be against him. Everyone against him. But again, remember the first tweet. I don't see any mention of race here. Gross, abusive, unprofessional, completely unacceptable. Okay? So what? What? Specifically this word, what? What did they do? We still aren't allowed to know. They still don't tell us. But this idea here that, it's not about Zach. I mean, I really do believe he was manipulated by Zach. Now, maybe not like intent, like, here's the plan, Ray. You go do this and do this. Sure. But I think emotionally, Zach was hurt. Zach is frustrated by the studio. And Ray wants to help battle that fight for him. So, yeah, I do think it's connected. Absolutely do believe it's connected. And clearly, Warner Brothers does too. All right, so let's get to another point here. So here's where it gets to the point of where Fisher signed up for a far cry of what the Whedon film was supposed to be. Snyder had taken length with Chris Terrio before there was even a script. Zack and I always considered Cyborg's story to be the heart of the movie. He's the most pronounced character he has the most pronounced character arc of any of the heroes, and he's the whole. That he is, beginning with a place of despair, ending with a feeling that he is whole and that he is loved. Terrio says that he and Snyder took the portrayal of the first black superhero in the DC film universe very seriously, adding, with a white writer and a white director, we both thought having the perspective of an actor of color was really important. And Ray is really good with story and character, so he became a partner in creating Victor, referring to the character's given name. Okay, they're right. I don't disagree. And clearly they gave the character more to do in the Snyder Cut. Still didn't love the character. It's not that it didn't change the world for me. I've seen better characters. It is what it is. But yeah, they took it more seriously in the Snyder Cut because they had 4 hours to tell. Now, they probably could have fit in another half hour and fit more of his film in, but they didn't. Personally, in both versions, Cyborg was not a character that was important to me. Clearly, he was important to a lot of other people. So did Joss potentially make a mistake in not taking the seriousness of the first DC black superhero and at least giving that role more oomph? Sure, he did. I think that was a creative mistake. Does that mean it was a racist choice? No. That's the problem here. When filming proceeded under Whedon, Fisher came to feel that he had to explain some of the most basic points of what would be offensive to the black community. As Fisher's reps were told that Whedon planned to make major revisions, he flew to meet with the filmmaker. They met at a bar. Whedon was tiptoeing around the fact that everything was changing. As he left the meeting, Fisher was handed the revised script, which he read twice on the plane back. Gone with Cyborg's traumatic backstory, his relationship with his mother, whose loving scenes with his son were eliminated, as was the accident that killed her and led to his transformation. This material was later restored in the Snyder Cut. It represents that his parents are two genius-level black people. We don't see that every day. Okay? Very quick scene. It's not sure. Did it need to be there? No. Does removing it make him racist? No. Whedon sent out an email asking for questions, comments, or fulsome praise. But Fisher says it became clear all he was looking for was the fulsome praise. Trying to strike a jocular tone, Fisher responded that he mourned the loss of Cyborg material, but was moving on. He said he had notes to avoid the issues. He said he even had notes to avoid the issues. Trying to strike. But in the call with Whedon, Fisher says he had barely started to talk when the filmmaker cut him off. It feels like I'm taking notes right now, and I don't take notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr. Other sources of the project say Whedon was similarly dismissive of Gadot and Momoa when they questioned new lines. Whedon declined to comment. Now, right out the gate here, I will confirm and say, sure, this makes Whedon sound like an a-hole. I've never denied the fact that Whedon totally could be an a-hole on set. Clearly, a lot of the Buffy people agreed. The people from his new show, The Nevers, have come forward and said it was an amazing experience. They had no problem with Joss. A lot of people have come forward. It seems to be like either love him or hate him experience. He's clearly got an ego. He's built a lot of really popular stuff. He's famous. It's gotten to his head perhaps a little bit. He's perhaps not the nicest guy in the world. All of that's potentially true. I wish Joss would come forward and say something until he does. It's hard to defend him in a way. I'm not trying to defend him, but I will say I believe some of this, that, yeah, Whedon clearly was an a-hole. And so then they go in to talk about Johns and says that Johns presented himself as a kind of a mediator and ultimately was just like, we just can't make Joss mad because Joss was the hired guy. It was a big deal. He made the Avengers. This was a score to get him. Publicist who reps Jeff Johns denies that, but says Johns recalls suggesting that any creative pitches should happen when Joss Whedon was not preoccupied, so he would be most receptive. So sort of acknowledging he was all over the place, hard to track down, hard to pin down, hard to get to agree, because he was the writer-director in charge of the reshoots going up to the studio head. Once Whedon got involved, Fisher says that Johns told him that it was problematic that Cyborg smiled only twice in the movie. Fisher says he later learned from a witness who participated in the investigation that Johns and other top executives, including then John Berg, Toby Emmerich, had discussions in which they said they could not have an angry black man at the center of the film. Okay, I need so much more specifics here. What? Who said it? Did they all say it? Are you just unsure who said it, so you're saying they said it? One person said it, you don't know who, and then they all sort of acknowledged? What does this mean? I need more information about this. Just like the Meghan Markle thing. Tell us who said it, Ray. Why are you protecting them? Is it because you don't actually know? It's because someone in the meeting said, but I don't know who said it. Well, tell us some more specifics. That's important, right? If you're going to lob such a serious accusation, it's important to know who said it, how they said it, etc. John's rep responds that once the chairman of the studios mandated a brighter tone for the film, all further discussions centered on adding joy and hopefulness to all 6 superheroes. There are always conversations about avoiding any stereotype of race, gender, or sexuality. So it seems like John's admitting, yeah, we had the conversation. And he's sort of saying, yeah, the whole movie, we can't just have angry characters, but then he specifically focused on the stereotype of an angry black man. Come on, we can't have our first black superhero be the angry black guy. Which, let's be honest, there's a version of the film that could have been the whole movie, in which case that would have been terrible. I'm confused. Does Ray want an angry black man in the movie? Is that a good representation of black men to have them be the angry one in the movie? Or could that be a stereotype that was trying to be avoided? Again, what was the conversation? You weren't there, Ray. So for you to jump immediately to assume it was all about racism is really dangerous. So I don't subscribe to this as proof. I don't subscribe to this as proof. I need more specifics. And Jeff here is sort of acknowledging, yeah, that we had in behind closed door meetings serious conversations about making sure these heroes had joy and avoiding stereotypes of race, gender, and sexuality. Okay. Johns also said that the character should play less Frankenstein and more like kind-hearted Quasimodo. Fisher says that in order to demonstrate the look he wanted, Johns dipped his shoulder in what struck Fisher as a servile posture. You mean like the Quasimodo thing? That's what he does. He has the sort of like thing. That's what servile posture. Fisher there was a big difference between portraying a character who was born with a disability versus one who has been transformed by trauma. So much in Fisher's head. And he felt Cyborg was a kind of modern-day Frankenstein. I didn't have any intention of playing him as a jovial, cathedral-cleaning individual. Oh my God, this frustrates me so much. It's just proof that Ray was difficult. Creatively, he had him his mindset, and he refused to budge. And I'm sorry, then quit. Either quit or deal with it, or just do it, and then afterwards say, look, they made me do that. I didn't want to do it. You're an actor. You are a hired actor, and no offense, you were a nobody. This is a huge role. You do have to sort of follow along line, unless they're making you do something immensely offensive, which this is not offensive, guys. This is a creative choice. I don't understand the big deal. And what's so frustrating is this. All these notes on Cyborg. I love this quote that's pulled later. Just Here it is. Justice League producer Chuck Roven, a veteran DC superhero films dating back to Batman Begins, says, I fully empathize with Ray that his character arc was significantly altered and shortened. I've also collaborated with Jeff over many years and found him to be gracious and humble man. Jeff took it upon himself to put Cyborg in the Justice League comics in the first place. He's written more about the character than any other individual except for the creator. He loves the character Cyborg. So here you have the author, a guy who's written the most Cyborg, aside from the creator of Cyborg, and Ray Fisher's not taking his notes. Sorry, I don't believe you. The servile, jovial, cathedral cleaning, that's not my goal, Jeff. Get out of my face. As a black man, I know how to play this character better than you. I mean, Jesus. I'm sorry. He sounds massively difficult and frustrating to work with. He's proving it in this article. And this is exactly what later Jeff Johns tries to warn him about. This will not get you more work. As a friend, I'm trying to talk to you here. This is not the way you do it. In Hollywood, you sort of have to roll with the punches until you can earn your name or produce your own films to do what you want. Because otherwise you are labeled difficult. White, black, whatever. You sound difficult because this isn't about race. This is literally about his choice of, well, I'm not going to be like a cathedral cleaning individual. I'm doing Frankenstein. Are you the director, Ray? Are you the producer? Are you the writer? Sadly, you weren't. So either leave or be a team player. That's how these shows work. And if you're not a team player, you're only going to create more of a problem on set, which is going to cause more conflicts amongst everywhere because it's going to set everybody off. And then that's when things clearly got blown up even worse because everyone was just complaining, this isn't what I signed up for. Then leave. Just say, look, I'm not doing it. Fine. Then really have accountability over entertainment. Do it then. But you didn't. You played along. And now you're complaining years later. I'm sorry. It's frustrating to me. What do you want done here? This is sadly how it works. This isn't racism. This is just they're in charge and you're not. And here's Jeff's response to that. Jeff gave a note using a fictional character as an example of a sympathetic man who is unhappy and has an inclination to hide from the world, but one whom the audience roots for because he has a courageous heart. Facts. Fisher told Johns it might be one thing for a non-black person to write a character for a comic, but it was another for a black actor to portray that character on screen. It was like he was assuming how black people respond rather than taking the advice from the only black person, as far as I know, with any creative impact on the project. What does this have to do with race? Frankenstein versus Quasimodo? It sounds like the pressure of the character really got to Ray. And then it gets into this point about booyah. There's so much more to talk about, and Jeff defends himself even further. As a Lebanese American, had evolved traditionally all white DC properties from Shazam to Justice League of America and others, and diverse groups of heroes. Extensive work as a comic book author. So he definitely got a PR team to help him in all these responses, and Hollywood Reporter allowed him to put these responses in to really get that side across. But so anyway, all of this was during the acquisition, and here comes the booyah thing. So I want to wrap up on this sort of the booyah thing, and then I'll save more for tonight, the longer video. Phrase has a signature to the character thanks to the animated Teen Titans film, but the director didn't want. Johns had approached Snyder, but the director didn't want the catchphrases. He managed the situation by putting the word in some signs as an Easter egg, but Johns' rep says the studio believed the booyah line was a fun moment of synergy. Rep Fisher says he doesn't see the word in itself as an issue. So why is this a big deal then? But he thought it played differently in live action than in animated. And he thought of black characters in pop culture with defining phrases. Carrie Coleman's "What You Talking About, Willis?" Jimmy Walker's "Dynamite!" And no one else in the film had a catchphrase. He says it seemed weird to have only the black characters say that. Ray, you're making so much about race. Why? It's just it's just the word itself is not. You said hell yeah in the movie. You went hell yeah. But you can't say booyah. Figure that. Why not help creatively help? Why don't you hear someone say it earlier and just use it like Arnold in Terminator does? There's a million ways he could try to justify it to be a team player. You know, as I would say, never yes and instead of no. And you never yes-anded. You just said, no, I wouldn't do that. As a black actor, I know better. Quasimodo is not the way. It's Frankenstein. It's like what you're doing. You're just different. You're saying no constantly instead of yes and to try to work with the team. And honestly, I don't see anyone can't see that as a problem. That's why you're going to have trouble working again in this town. I don't understand that. That's the issue here. And he doesn't seem to see it. And it's really frustrating. And so, look, there's a lot more in here. I'm just trying to make sure there was something else here. They talk about this fact that calling up Jeff John because of all the difficulties. His agent called Toby Emmerich. They tried to get a meeting, and Jeff Johns was like, "Dude, that's just not cool." He says, Fisher says, this is the quote from Jeff. He said, "I consider us to be friends," which he knew we were not, "and I just don't want you to make the bad name for yourself in the business." That's not a threat at your career. That is a fair fact of someone looking out for you. And you're making Andy Damas. You now have said what he said, and I read this, and I'm sorry. That is not a threat. That is not a threat. That is a warning, dude. Someone's got. I'm going to tell you as a person, as a human being, this will cause you as difficult later on. Is this worth it? Are you not allowed to give someone a warning to be like, dude, I'm telling you this, and you proved it right. This is what happens. Why? I'm confused. Now, maybe he did this because Gal Gadot came forward. There's a big whole thing here, and we'll get to this more. I'm hoping I can get Jody tonight so we can talk about this in detail. But Gal apparently had a really bad problem with Joss. Knowledgeable sources say they went to bat. Both Patty and Gal went to bat for it. A witness on the production says Joss was bragging that he had it out with Gal. He told her he's the writer and she's going to shut up and say the lines he can make her look incredibly stupid in this movie. Now, this is terrible. This is true. This is terrible. Again, proof Joss is an a-hole. And this is proof of what Joss was saying. I'm sorry, what Ray was saying. It's the first example I've seen. If this was really happening, then there's a serious problem. Now, Gal says, I had my issues with Whedon. Warner Brothers handled it in a timely manner. She did it. She took care of it. Her and Patty stepped forward. Now, here's the difference between Gal and Ray. Gal was sort of a nobody, too. Let's be honest. But Gal had Wonder Woman. Gal had the film already made and a second one going. Now, Ray, you were supposed to have Cyborg. Now, if you had just played along and had your film made and got it out, maybe there would be more to it. And they were still talking maybe doing it with HBO Max coming. And if you didn't go and fight this whole thing, you might actually have gotten a Cyborg movie. If the fans weren't so aggressive and you didn't fight for this accountability, you might have had more to say, and then you could have earned your place, and then you could have been a producer to make a better movie. That's how you really get something done in Hollywood. This isn't going to do anything. This is going to be a blip in the radar of the news cycle, and in a year, no one's going to remember any of this. Your fans will be out there still trying to restore the Snyderverse, and maybe they'll get some luck later on, who knows. But at the end of the day, did this really elicit proper change? I don't think it's gonna. I personally don't think you did. Now, there's some stuff in here that proves that Joss is not the nicest guy. I believe it. I've heard stories myself. But again, that's not something that would make him never be able to work again, which is what Ray wants to do. And to wrap up sort of the ending here, to get to the point, there's a lot of defense and a lot of more stuff. And again, I'll go through. There's a whole part about Amada I want to get to. But at the very end, I want to address sort of his ending. I don't believe some of these people are fit for positions of leadership, who explains he's not looking for anyone to be fired. I don't want them excommunicated from Hollywood, but I don't think they should be in charge of the hiring and firing of other people. Fisher knows he's not going to win that battle, but he feels a point has been made. If I can't get accountability, he says, at least I can make people aware of who they're dealing with. And so Ray has put it out there. They didn't want an angry black man. They ended up with a motivated one. I'm not going anywhere. Accountability greater than entertainment. So he's out there pumping this up, and that's where it's going, and that's where we're at so far. So look, you can read the whole article to get more information. There's a lot more in there, and I will go through it tonight. Hope to get Jody and Lewis tonight for some real talk. So stay tuned for that tonight at 9. In fact, I'll put the link at the end of this video as well, so you can click that and hit it and remind me to join us tonight at 9. Stay tuned for more. I'd love your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet. Again, there it is on the left. Click on that one to hit remind, and join us tonight live, 9 p.m.